On a freezing winter night at a Chicago train station, a 60-year-old black female train attendant quietly carried out the job she'd done unnoticed for 34 years. When the train lost power and a pregnant woman went into labor in the dark, she was the only one who stayed calm. No one believed she could do anything until she delivered the baby herself. What happened next will leave everyone deeply moved. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thoughts. It was one of those Chicago nights where the cold didn't just press against your skin, it felt personal, like it was trying to remind you of everything you'd ever lost. The Roosevelt station was nearly deserted, the platform slick with wind-blown frost, and the old fluorescent lights above flickered like they were thinking about quitting. Clara Jenkins stood near the edge of the platform, her hands buried deep in the pockets of a heavy navy coat that had once been issued to her in the early 90s, back when the trains ran on time and people still said, "Thank you." She was 60 years old, with shoulders that stood upright not out of pride but practice. Her skin was a rich dark brown, like coffee left to settle, and her eyes, deep-set, tired, alert, moved with the quiet purpose of someone who had learned that staying invisible was sometimes the safest way to be seen. She had worked the city's train system for 34 years, not as a conductor, not as a supervisor, but as what they called an attendant. That meant she checked the cabins, made sure the safety lights worked, cleaned up when passengers left messes behind, and stayed late when no one else wanted the night shift. She called herself a custodian of the quiet hours, even if nobody else did. Clara lived alone in a one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat on the south side. Her husband, Marcus, had driven trains for the city before he died of pancreatic cancer 15 years ago. They never had children. There was a time they tried, but time eventually made its own decision. After Marcus passed, Clara stayed with the rail system. Not because she had to, but because it was the only place where his memory lingered, in the tracks, in the hum of old engines, in the smell of steel and oil at dawn. Every night she reported for duty, quiet and early, a thermos of black coffee in one hand and an old flashlight in the other. She never missed a shift. Not during the flu, not during the riots, not even during the weeks when her knee swelled so bad she had to ice it between stations. There was pride in that. Not the kind people hand you with plaques and speeches, the private kind, the kind you carry alone. Tonight she was checking the final train of the night. Midnight run, the one no one really cared about, except the people who had no choice but to take it. As she stepped onto the first cabin, her boots thudded lightly against the floor. She bent down to pick up a crumpled napkin left under seat 11, wincing a little as her knee reminded her it didn't like cold nights. Behind her, a group of young professionals, 2 white men and a woman in a blazer, entered laughing. One of the men, tall with gelled hair and expensive shoes, nodded toward Clara as she stood up. Didn't know they still had these, what do they call them, human relics, he joked, not bothering to lower his voice. The others chuckled politely. Clara didn't flinch. She didn't roll her eyes. She didn't say a word. She'd heard better insults. She'd also heard worse. There was a time when comments like that would have sat on her chest all week, but now she just filed them away in that drawer of things not worth responding to. She moved to the next cabin, her flashlight casting soft light on each seat. In the final car, the door slid open just as she stepped inside. A couple entered slowly. The man, black, tall, well-groomed, expensive wool coat, held the door for his wife. She was in her early 30s, visibly pregnant and careful with each step. Clara stepped back, giving them room. "Evening," she said gently. The woman smiled, though her face was tight with discomfort. "Evening, sorry, we almost missed it." "No trouble," Clara replied. "Still got a few minutes before departure?" The husband didn't say anything. His eyes glanced briefly at Clara, then returned to his wife, as if unsure what to make of the older woman in uniform. Clara noticed it, noted it, let it go. The woman took a seat near the middle of the cabin, exhaled slowly. Her hand rested on her stomach. "We met on this line," she said, more to herself than anyone else. 5 years ago, last train of the night, he gave me his seat." Clara's voice softened. This train's got a good memory for that kind of thing. The woman looked up and met Clara's gaze. There was warmth there, maybe even gratitude, but it passed quickly when her husband interrupted, checking his phone. "We should be moving soon, right?" he asked. His tone was polite, but the subtext was clear. He didn't need a conversation, he needed efficiency. Clara gave a small nod. "Won't be long." She turned and walked away slowly, back toward the front of the train. Her flashlight swung with each step. 34 years in the tunnels, and she still knew when a storm was coming, but even Clara Jenkins couldn't have predicted what that night would demand of her. The train doors hissed shut with a soft thud as the clock struck midnight. Clara walked the length of the train one more time, her flashlight casting warm yellow arcs across the aisle. In the second car, the passengers had settled in. A few scrolled their phones. One man, already drowsy, leaned against the window with his hoodie pulled low. The lights overhead buzzed faintly, the rhythm of the train humming beneath them like a quiet warning. She moved toward the third car and paused. The same group from earlier, the ones who had laughed about her, were still there. The tall man now sat with his feet stretched into the aisle. He looked up as Clara entered and smirked. "You sure we're safe on this thing tonight?" he asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Not exactly first-class conditions." Clara didn't answer. She simply adjusted her coat, checked the emergency brake lever near the front, and continued walking. She'd learned long ago that people like him didn't want answers. They wanted to be overheard. The woman beside him, the one in the blazer, leaned close and whispered something that made him laugh again. Clara caught it this time. She probably doesn't even have a high school diploma. She felt a flicker in her chest. Not anger, not even hurt. Just a tired sort of ache that came from repetition. She kept walking. When she reached the fourth car, the atmosphere shifted. It was quieter. Less crowded. The pregnant woman and her husband sat side by side. The man staring out the window at the darkness blurring past. The woman cradling her belly with both hands. Clara paused at the door, made a note of their position, then stepped inside. "Everything all right back here?" she asked, her voice soft but present. The woman looked up. There was a sheen of sweat on her forehead now. She nodded, but it wasn't confident. "I think so, just a little pressure. It comes and goes." Her husband turned then, brows creased. "You said you were fine earlier." "I was," the woman replied quickly, brushing him off, her hand squeezing his. Clara took a small step closer. "Ma'am, you need anything? Water, something for your back?" The man held up a hand, polite but dismissive. "We're okay, really." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Clara gave a single nod. "If that changes, I'll be near the front." She started to walk away, but then the woman spoke again. "This was supposed to be a nice memory," she said quietly, almost to herself. "We met on this train. 5 years ago, same car. He sat right where you're standing." Clara looked down. "A lot of stories start on this train. Not all of them get a second ride." She smiled, just a little. "Glad yours did." There was a pause. The woman's eyes softened. She was about to say something more when a jolt ran through the car, just enough to shift the lighting overhead. The fluorescent panels blinked once, then returned to normal. The husband glanced up. "That normal?" Clara turned slightly, checking the control panel at the end of the car. "Could be nothing, but I'll take a look." As she walked back toward the front, she heard a voice from one of the earlier cars. A white woman, mid-40s, with a designer scarf and a permanent scowl. "Excuse me," she called loudly. "Do you know how long this ride is supposed to take? I have a transfer downtown." Clara turned, keeping her tone even. "We should be on schedule, ma'am. No delays reported yet." The woman rolled her eyes. "That's not comforting. I hope someone in charge is actually monitoring this train." Clara nodded once. "They are, ma'am, and I'm here if anything changes." She turned again, letting the comment slide off like rain on steel. Back at the front car, she sat briefly in her jump seat, exhaled slow and deep. Her knees ached. The train was warm now, but the air still carried the dryness of recycled heat and years of grime. She rubbed her hands together to warm them, then looked up at the panel overhead. No alerts, no calls. but something in her gut said the night wasn't done shifting. She thought again about the woman in the fourth car, the tightness in her smile, the way she had said, "Pressure." Clara knew that look. She'd seen it in emergency stops, in elevators stuck between floors, in station bathrooms where babies came early and uninvited. And still that man had told her they were okay. The train dipped slightly as it entered the next tunnel. The lights buzzed again. Clara stood, flashlight in hand. Whatever was coming, she would meet it standing, not because she had to, but because it was what she always did. The tunnel swallowed them whole. One moment the city lights blinked faintly beyond the windows, and the next everything outside turned to black. The kind of black that made you feel alone, even in a crowded car. Clara stood near the front, eyes fixed on the overhead monitor, when the first warning signal appeared, just a flicker at first, then a solid red square pulsing on the screen. A mechanical groan echoed through the undercarriage of the train. The lights overhead stuttered once, then again. Then they died. Not dimmed, died. The train kept moving. The hum of the engine grew louder, more strained. Clara reached for her flashlight, flipped it on, and moved with urgency toward the control panel. Her fingers moved with instinct, pressing the manual override, checking the pressure gauges. Nothing was responding. She grabbed the radio clipped to her vest, held it close to her mouth. "This is car lead 76, she said steadily. "We've lost cabin power, lights are out, brakes unresponsive, still in motion, repeat, still in motion." Static. She tried again. More static. Deep in the tunnel there were blind spots in radio coverage. She knew that. She'd reported it more than once. They always said they'd fix it. Behind her, the silence inside the train cracked. A young man's voice called out from the second car. "Hey, what's going on? Why'd the lights cut?" Another voice followed, sharper, more anxious. "Are we stopping? Why aren't we stopping?" Clara turned quickly and moved down the aisle with her flashlight. Faces turned toward her as the beam passed, nervous, confused, some already irritated. She saw the tall man from earlier lean into the aisle again. "Oh, great," he muttered. "She's got a flashlight. That's reassuring." The woman beside him clutched her purse closer. In the fourth car, things had changed. The pregnant woman was now gripping both armrests. Her breathing was audible, fast, shallow. Her husband hovered over her, confused but clearly alarmed. Clara approached, voice firm but calm. "Mem, are you in labor?" The woman nodded tightly, eyes wide. "It started right when the lights went out. It's not stopping." Her husband turned to Clara, voice sharp. "Is this some kind of joke? There's no emergency brakes, no communication. What kind of system are you people running?" Clara looked him in the eye. "Sir, I need you to calm down. Right now she needs steady breathing and quiet, not shouting." "She needs a hospital," he barked. "And this train needs brakes," Clara said flatly. "We don't have either at the moment, so let's focus on what we can do." The man looked stunned for a second. Clara didn't wait. She knelt down beside the woman and spoke softly, gently. "What's your name?" "Erica." "All right, Erica. I'm Clara. I'm not a nurse, but I've seen this before. I've helped before. I need you to breathe with me, in through your nose, out through your mouth, like this." They began together. Slow, shaky breaths, in rhythm with the swaying of the train. Clara turned to the husband. "I need space around her. If you've got a coat, give it to me. And find something clean to go under her. We're not stopping any time soon." He hesitated, then wordlessly pulled off his coat and knelt beside Clara, suddenly unsure but cooperative. "What do you need?" Clara grabbed her radio again, tried the emergency frequency. Still static. She set it down and dug through the old first aid kit stored behind the jump seat. Gauze, a pair of gloves, scissors so dull they were barely worth the name. A voice from the back of the car rose. "Is someone giving birth up there?" A few passengers started standing, stepping forward with their phones out. Clara looked over her shoulder. "No photos. Sit down or help. That's it." One woman, older, heavy-set with a kind face, stepped forward. "I'm not a nurse either, but I raised 4 kids. Tell me what to do." Clara nodded. "Hold the flashlight steady over us. That's all I need for now." The train jerked slightly, making Erica cry out in pain. Her husband clutched her hand tightly, whispering something close to her ear. Clara positioned the coat beneath her, placed a folded scarf behind her back, and kept her voice steady. "You're doing great, Erica. You're not alone." All around them, the air inside the car shifted. The ones who had scoffed at Clara earlier now watched her with wide eyes. The passengers who had ignored her voice now leaned in at every word. The flashlight beam shook slightly from the helper's trembling hand, but Clara's voice didn't waver. A storm had arrived inside this moving steel cage, and somehow the only calm in it all came from the woman everyone had looked down on. And still the train kept moving, no brakes, no light. But Clara Jenkins had never needed permission to step up. Only a reason, and tonight that reason was about to be born. The air inside the train had changed. It was no longer filled with murmurs of confusion or complaints about delays. Now it was heavy with held breath, damp with heat and fear, and focused entirely on one small section of the fourth car, where Clara Jenkins knelt beside Erica Williams, hands gloved, voice steady, preparing to do something she had not done in over a decade. The flashlight beam trembled slightly, casting long shadows against the seats. Clara didn't mind. Shadows didn't scare her. What scared her was hesitation, panic, doubt. But she buried those feelings deep, behind 34 years of knowing how to hold her ground when others crumbled. Erica cried out again, her hand squeezing her husband's so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Sweat trickled down the side of her face, and her eyes darted to Clara's. "I can't do this," she gasped. "Not here, not on a train." "Yes, you can," Clara said, firmly but with warmth. "You're not alone, Erica. You've got him, you've got me, you've got a car full of people who don't know what to say, but they're here, and I'm right here with you." Erica's husband Jordan wiped her forehead with the sleeve of his shirt. "The baby. It's early, right?" Clara didn't look up. "How early?" 32 weeks, Erica whispered. Clara closed her eyes just for a second. It wasn't ideal, far from it. But the train wasn't stopping, and the tunnel wasn't ending, and she had no time to wish for better. She reached for the dull scissors, cleaned them quickly with alcohol wipes from the first aid kit, then positioned herself as best she could in the cramped aisle. She spoke to the woman holding the flashlight, her tone precise. "Keep that light right here. Don't move, no matter what." "Yes, ma'am," the woman said, her voice tight with emotion. A wave of silence rolled over the car as another contraction hit. Erica screamed, her back arching, and Clara guided her through it, breathing with her, coaching her, keeping her mind in the present. The sound of the train clattering over the tracks felt louder now, more urgent, almost like it was racing against them. Clara's own heart pounded in her chest, but her hands stayed steady. She had done this once before, years ago, when a teenage girl went into labor in the women's restroom at Garfield Station. That baby had survived. So would this one. Minutes passed like hours. Clara gave instructions calmly. Erica followed them even when it hurt, even when it scared her. Jordan never let go of her hand, and he never looked away from Clara. Not once. And then, with a final cry that broke something open in everyone watching, it happened. The baby arrived. Clara moved quickly, wrapping the newborn in Jordan's coat, checking for breath. For a moment, nothing. Then a cough. Then a cry. Small, high-pitched, fierce. The sound echoed through the car like a miracle. Clara let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "It's a girl," she said softly, and smiled. Jordan burst into tears, his shoulders shaking. Erica reached for the bundle with trembling arms. Clara placed the baby gently against her chest. The little girl quieted instantly. For a moment, no one moved. Even the train seemed quieter. Then, from somewhere in the back, a woman began to clap. One person, then another, and soon the whole car was applauding, standing, crying, completely undone by what they had just witnessed. The man who had mocked Clara earlier stood near the edge of the aisle, eyes wide, mouth open. He didn't say anything. Clara stood slowly, her knees stiff but her spine tall. She looked at the baby, then at Erica, then at Jordan. "You did it," she said. "No," Jordan said, wiping his eyes. "You did." Clara shook her head. "No. I just made sure she had a path. You two did the rest." The radio on Clara's hip crackled suddenly. Garbled at first, then clear. "Car lead 7-6, do you read? We're tracking a system outage, do you copy?" Clara picked it up. "This is Jenkins. We've had a birth on board, mother and child stable. We'll need medical at the next stop." There was a pause, then, "Copy that. We're routing all signals to prioritize your car. ETA 5 minutes. Clara looked down at the baby again, still curled tightly against her mother's chest. "You're going to be all right, little one." And for the first time that night she believed it. Not because the lights were back, not because help was coming, but because in the darkest place, surrounded by strangers, someone had chosen not to look away. Someone had knelt down, had stayed, had delivered hope with nothing but a flashlight and faith. And her name was Clara Jenkins. The train pulled into the next station slowly, the screech of steel on steel echoing like a final exhale. Outside, the early morning sky had softened from pitch black to a dull navy, touched by the promise of dawn. Emergency crews were already waiting on the platform, paramedics in Navy uniforms pushing gurneys, station officials talking into radios, camera lights blinking faintly in the distance. Inside car 4, Erica was resting against the seat, her baby wrapped tightly in layers of makeshift blankets. Jordan sat beside her, one arm draped protectively around them both, his other hand holding Clara's in silent gratitude. The baby stirred, whimpered once, then settled again. Clara remained kneeling until she was sure mother and child were ready. Then she slowly stood, knees aching, back sore, heart full. As the doors slid open, paramedics entered and quickly assessed the scene. One of them, a young white woman with sharp eyes and steady hands, looked at Clara and blinked. "You're the one who delivered the baby?" Clara gave a quiet nod. The medic smiled. "Ma'am, you're a legend already." They called ahead, words spreading fast. Clara raised an eyebrow but said nothing. She didn't do it for headlines. She never had. The team moved quickly, lifting Erica gently onto a stretcher while Jordan cradled the newborn. A soft cheer rose from the other passengers as they were wheeled out. Before disappearing down the ramp, Jordan turned back. "Clara," he said, voice cracking. "Her name's Clarity. We named her after you. After what you gave us tonight." Clara blinked, stunned. She hadn't expected that. She had given them calm, given them guidance. But her name? "Thank you," she whispered. The train slowly emptied, passengers stepping off with a mix of reverence and quiet reflection. The woman who had insulted her earlier lowered her eyes as she passed Clara. No apology came. But she didn't look away. That was enough for tonight. By the time the sun climbed fully over the rooftops of Chicago, the night before already felt like a strange dream. The city was wide awake now. Trains rumbled in and out of Roosevelt Station, footsteps echoed across the concrete, and the cold morning wind slid in through every open door like it had unfinished business. But inside the staff lounge, Clara Jenkins sat still, sipping from a paper cup of coffee that had long since gone cold. Her body was tired, but her mind was sharper than ever. The pink knit cap rested in her lap. She hadn't let it go all morning. When the knock came, she barely looked up. "Miss Jenkins?" A young clerk peeked inside, awkward. "There's a man here to see you. Says he's family of the woman who gave birth last night." Clara stood slowly. Her knees still ached, her shoulders still stiff, but her footing was firm. Out on the platform, the man waited. Mid-30s, clean-shaven, sharply dressed in a charcoal coat and wool scarf. He looked like someone who made decisions for a living. But the way he shifted on his feet, nervous, searching, told Clara everything she needed to know. "Clara Jenkins?" he asked as soon as he saw her. I am, she replied. I'm Jordan Williams, he said quickly. Erica's brother, Jordan, the baby's uncle. She nodded, calm. How's your sister? Doing great. The baby too. They're calling her Clarity. Clara's eyes softened. Good name. He stepped closer, holding out an envelope with both hands. This is from us. From our whole family. It's not just money, it's appreciation, real appreciation, for what you did last night. Clara didn't move to take it. Her hands stayed at her sides. I understand, he added quickly, if you're hesitant. But this isn't charity. It's recognition. And you deserve it. Clara looked him in the eye, quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, slow and clear. Son, I appreciate you coming here, and I appreciate that you mean it. But I won't be taking that. Jordan blinked. Why not? Because kindness ain't a transaction, she said. It's a choice. Last night wasn't about what I earned. It was about what was needed. That baby didn't wait for the hospital. That train didn't wait to be fixed. And I didn't wait to be thanked. He stared at her, unsure of what to say. Clara continued. You want to thank me? Make sure that little girl grows up knowing that people like me matter. That women who look like me aren't just uniforms in the background, that we're worth listening to. Even when we don't have a title. Jordan swallowed. She will. I swear. Clara nodded. Then we're good. She gave him a small, tired smile. He lowered the envelope, unsure what to do with it, then quietly slipped it back into his coat. There was no awkwardness, just understanding. Before he turned to leave, he said softly, You changed our family forever. Clara looked out over the tracks. She changed it. I just made sure she got here. As he walked away, the wind picked up, rattling a metal sign somewhere down the line. Clara stood there a moment longer, watching the trains come and go, the city carrying on. Then she returned to her post, pink cap still in her coat pocket, ready for the next ride. Because the work didn't stop, and neither did she. Some heroes get statues, some get headlines. Clara Jenkins, she got up, went to work, and kept showing up. No payment required. Join us to share meaningful stories by hitting the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell to start your day with profound lessons and heartfelt empathy.